There is one thing that you need to stop doing. And sometimes you're not even aware you're doing it. It's an unconscious thing. But you can still unlearn it. And it's necessary to unlearn this. Now, what is it? It's the following. When people refuse to give up their toxic restrictions, stop trying to convince them to do otherwise. A toxic restriction is a toxic restriction. No matter what name you give it, norms, values, morals, ethics, boundaries, manners, politeness, respect, I don't care what label you give it. A toxic restriction is restriction that will harm you in the long run. And when you were growing up as a child, you had no choice. When you were growing up, even in your teenage years, you had no choice. However, you have a choice now. It's not your fault that society groomed you into toxic restrictions. But it is your responsibility now to unlearn those toxic restrictions and to embrace life and abundance that Christ offers you. And here's where it goes wrong. Too many people are so invested and attached into the toxic restrictions society shaped them into. Society shaped toxic restrictions in them that they also hold on to. Maybe it is that you don't want people to call you with your first name if you haven't interacted with them before. You think it's rude. No, it's just a restriction that people enforce on you. Maybe you can't stand people coming to your house how do I say? You don't want people to come to your house without warning you. You think that's rude. That's invading your life. There are cultures where it's common to receive people at your home without announcing it. Yes, it's announcement. The thing is, a lot of people, including believers, I'm talking to believers now, a lot of believers, they retain restrictions God tells them to let go of. Look, at some point, a toxic restriction will show itself to be toxic because it will limit and hinder you in operating in life in abundance. And because of that, it keeps you in darkness, it keeps you in conflict, and it keeps you in negativity. So the moment you see that there is a cycle called negativity that you're operating in, you need to look into the mirror and find out what is it about you that you need to give up. What is it about you that you keep doing wrong that keeps you in a cycle of negativity? And when it becomes obvious that's one of your own restrictions, you need to unlearn that restriction and learn to be flexible and practical with other people. But a lot of folks don't want to do this. They don't. They know that it's their own attitude or their own way of thinking that keeps them back. But then, instead of admitting this, they want to justify the way of thinking. They will say, that's how I was raised, or I had a rough childhood, so I needed boundaries. Or they would say, well, I just don't like that. Or they would say, well, at least I'm not that bad. They will always come with lists of excuses of why they are the way they are. Now look, if you are severely traumatized and it takes time for you to recover, that's another thing. But even then you acknowledge that you need recovery and you participate in recovery. A lot of folks lie to you. They say that they are in recovery. They say they want improvement. They say they want change for the better. But in reality, they don't. They just want an outlet for when things get rough. That's the only thing they want. So listen to what I'm saying here. Listen well. When someone refuses to give up the toxic restrictions that have been proven to be toxic, then stop trying to convince them to give up the things they don't want to give up. Why am I telling you this? Because such people, they don't really want solutions. They want your efforts to make them feel better. They want you to do your best to convince them to do better. That gives them narcissistic supply. And they'll let you think that they are listening to you while they're not listening to you at all. Some people are so blunt and so dishonorable, they tell it to your face that they're not going to listen to you. They're going to do whatever they think is right. But at the same time, they expect you to put up with their defectiveness and with their toxicity. When people know that they need to give up something and they refuse to give it up, it's because they are in idolatry. They are invested in a false god. So they need to give up that idolatry. As long as they are in that idolatry, the same crap, the same issues will resurface over and over again. Such people will become upset with you when you prefer your own peace above their drama. People that refuse to give up toxic restrictions, they generate tension. They generate a toxic climate. And once the climate is toxic, they want company in their misery. And if you refuse to participate in their misery, but you prefer peace and sanity, they turn on you. All your efforts to convince them to do better, they will use it against you, saying you're intervening in other people's life. You think that you know everything. They will turn into a problem just because they need someone to escalate upon. Instead of facing themselves and dealing with what they need to deal with, they want to turn on someone. And they don't care that you were always there for them, that you were the good guy or the good girl that was always there for them, rooting for them. They don't care. They just need an outlet and someone just has to take it so they are at ease. It's not only narcissists that behave this way. There are many commoners like this also. Unfortunately, even some believers. And that's quite embarrassing. In any case, when people refuse to give up their false gods, hand them over to their false gods, and keep moving on without them. You can still say hi when you see them or whatever, just don't remain in long-term interaction with them, and the more you can avoid them, the better. And if it's the best to break contact, you break all contact. Such people are not interested in their own safety nor the state of others. Such people will always make excuses for when things go wrong. I'm telling you, when they refuse to give up their toxic restrictions, let them remain with their toxic restrictions. Because the moment those toxic restrictions become heavy, they want an outlet. So don't be around for them to consider you a potential target. Such people will turn on anyone available, sometimes even their own children, or one of the people that are caring for them, just to have an outlet. I'm telling you, don't negotiate with people that are invested in idolatry, because people invested in idolatry will never actually negotiate with anyone. They'll only look for ways to subvert you to validate their misery. People invested in idolatry just want you to validate their misery by being part of it. And when you refuse to be part of it, they escalate on you. They blackmail you as if you don't have the rights nor the entitlement to be at peace. They don't want peace. They just want an outlet for their toxicity. And when you refuse to be part of that misery, you are the worst enemy. They become your worst enemy. And they treat you like you are the worst enemy, even though you don't even mean any harm to them. You may not even be thinking about them, but they're meditating how to bring you down. Why? Because you refuse to validate their misery. Leave those idolaters alone. Be at peace.